My name is Ethan Walker, and I am standing in a dusty storage unit in Phoenix, holding a photograph that just destroyed everything I believed about my father. The fluorescent lights flicker overhead, casting shadows across military medals I never knew existed. 3 days ago, I was homeless, sleeping in the back of my 2009 Ford F-150 after my ex-wife Vanessa took everything in our divorce. I had been parking behind a 24-hour supermart, showering at Anytime Fitness, and eating dollar menu items twice a day. Now I am staring at evidence that my dad, who I thought died a simple mechanic with grease under his fingernails and overalls that smelled like motor oil, was actually someone completely different. The man in this photograph, wearing a Navy SEAL uniform with classified mission patches, is not the father who taught me to change oil when I was 8 years old. This is not the man who wore the same faded Chicago Bears cap every Sunday while we watched football together. The tactical gear, the automatic weapon, the 4 other soldiers beside him in what looks like a jungle in Southeast Asia. That is my father, Sam Walker. The man who told me his biggest adventure was driving Highway 50 in his 20s. And the document beneath it, an official Department of Defense paper stamped Classified Operation, Blackwater 1972, shows he was involved in missions that still are not fully declassified. But that is not even the most shocking part. There is a deed here to properties worth $50 million, properties I never knew existed. Properties he kept hidden our entire lives while he lived in a modest 2-bedroom house and drove a 10-year-old pickup truck. My hands are shaking as I read his handwriting on a letter dated just 8 months before his death. Ethan, if you are reading this, then Vanessa has shown her true face and you have lost everything you thought mattered. Good. Now you are ready to learn what really matters. Behind me, Harold Whitaker, the 72-year-old Vietnam veteran who bought this unit at auction 3 days ago, puts his hand on my shoulder. Your father saved my entire platoon in '72, he says quietly. 11 men are alive today because of what he did. We always wondered what happened to him after he went dark. Turns out he was hiding in plain sight being your dad. I can hear my ex-wife's voice echoing from 8 months ago when she stood in our marble kitchen, diamond earrings catching the light, laughing as she said, "You will die poor and alone, Ethan. You are just like your pathetic father playing with cars and pretending to be something special. The difference is I am taking everything you built and leaving you with exactly what you deserve. Nothing." She was wrong about one thing. I am not alone. My sister Linda is waiting outside in her minivan, and my teenage children Caleb and Grace are starting to see through their mother's lies. But she was also wrong about something else. My father was not pathetic. He was a ghost, a warrior who chose to become invisible to protect his family. And apparently he saw Vanessa coming from miles away. The storage unit is only 10 by 22 feet, but it contains an entire hidden life. There are folders labeled with names of cities I never knew he had visited. Da Nang, Chiang Mai, Frankfurt, Alexandria. There are passports with his photo but different names. There is a SIG P320 in a hidden compartment with a permit that somehow never expired. And there is a safety deposit box key taped to a business card for Whitman & Company Private Wealth, Phoenix' most prestigious private wealth management firm. Ethan Harold says, pulling out another photograph. This one shows my father shaking hands with someone whose face is blacked out with marker, but the background is clearly the executive mansion. Whatever your dad was involved in, it went all the way to the top. This storage unit is not just storage. It is a dead man's switch, and you just activated it. I think about this morning when I was fixing a transmission at the garage, where I had found temporary work making $16 an hour under the table. The owner, Frank, had no idea he had hired someone who once owned 12 luxury car dealerships across Arizona. He just saw a desperate man who knew his way around an engine. You remind me of someone, Frank had said. Used to know a mechanic named Sam Walker. Best damn diagnostic mind I ever saw. Could hear what was wrong with an engine just by listening. That was my father, I told him. Frank had smiled. Then you come by it honest. He always said his boy was destined for big things. Now, standing here surrounded by evidence of my father's secret life, I realize Frank did not know the half of it. None of us did. Sam Walker was not just a good mechanic who could diagnose engine problems. He could diagnose people. He could see threats. He could plan operations that spanned decades. The storage unit smells like dust and old paper, but underneath it, there is something else. Gun oil. The same smell that I now realize always clung faintly to my father's workshop, hidden beneath the stronger scents of gasoline and degreaser. How many times had I stood in that workshop talking about my business deals, my marriage, my plans for the future, never knowing I was being watched over by someone who had operated in shadows I could not imagine. There is more, Harold says, pointing to a laptop bag in the corner. That computer has files on it. Videos. Your father recorded conversations with your ex-wife. She never knew he was there, but he was documenting everything. Ethan, your dad, did not just die 3 years ago. He spent his last months building a case to protect you from something he saw coming. I pick up another document. It is a private investigator's report on Vanessa. Except her name is not Vanessa in this file. It is Patricia Chandler, and she is standing next to a man in Tacoma. The next page shows her as Lena Morgan with a different man in Salem. Both men, according to the notes, lost everything in divorces. Both men, like me, thought they had married the love of their lives. My phone buzzes. It is a text from my son, Caleb. Dad, Mom is freaking out. Some lawyer named Whitman just called the house asking for you. She is screaming about hidden assets. What is going on? I look at Harold, then back at the evidence of my father's double life spread across the storage unit floor. What is going on? I say out loud, though Caleb cannot hear me. Is that Grandpa just reached out from beyond the grave to save our family? The last item I pick up is a small notebook. The first page has one line in my father's careful handwriting. The best operators are the ones you never suspect. The best fathers are the ones who win battles their children never know were fought. Welcome to the fight, son. 8 months ago, I owned the largest luxury car dealership chain in Arizona with 12 locations, stretching from Phoenix to Lake Tahoe. My father, Sam Walker, had always told me, "Son, honest work builds honest wealth, but smart work builds empires." He had died 3 years earlier, leaving behind his small mechanic shop on Roosevelt Avenue and a storage unit I could not afford to keep paying for. I had built my empire from his teachings about cars, customer service, and reading people. Or so I thought. Life was perfect in every way that mattered to the outside world. Vanessa and I lived in our lakefront mansion in Lake Tahoe, a 9,200 skewer FT testament to success with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. Every morning I would drink coffee on our private dock, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold while our yacht bobbed gently nearby. Our kids, Caleb and Grace, attended Phoenix's most exclusive private school, Hawthorne Academy, where tuition cost more than most people's annual salary. "Ethan, you have given me the world," Vanessa had said at our 21st anniversary party, raising a champagne glass to toast me in front of 200 guests. She wore the red Valentino dress I had surprised her with diamonds catching the light from the chandeliers. 21 years ago, you promised me a life beyond my wildest dreams, and you delivered. The crowd had applauded. My business partners smiled. Even my father, still alive then, had raised his beer bottle from his corner table, giving me that quiet nod of approval he reserved for moments when he was truly proud. He had worn his only suit, the navy blue one from Macy's that he had bought for my wedding, refusing my offers to buy him something designer. "I am a mechanic, Ethan," he had said. "Fancy clothes do not make the man." What I did not know was that Vanessa had already been planning her exit for 3 years. Her lawyer, Nathan Pierce, had been at that very anniversary party shaking my hand and congratulating me while secretly documenting every business decision I made. They had been building a case brick by brick that would paint me as a reckless businessman who gambled with family assets. "Your Honor, Pierce would later say in court, his voice dripping with manufactured concern. Mr. Walker has shown a pattern of risky investments that endanger the family's financial security. He leveraged their home for a dealership expansion. He invested their children's college funds in volatile automotive stocks. He made unilateral decisions that put his ego above his family's future. The truth was more complicated. Those risky investments were calculated expansions into emerging markets. The leverage on our home had paid off 3 times over. The automotive stocks had doubled our children's college funds, but Vanessa had been moving money creating paper trails that told a different story. She had been recording our private conversations for years, carefully editing them to make me sound unstable, controlling, and financially abusive. I discovered she had hired a forensic accountant 2 years before filing for divorce. She had opened credit cards in my name and maxed them out on purchases that looked suspicious. She had created emails from fake accounts discussing my gambling problem and violent temper, neither of which existed. My own lawyer, Alan, had been stunned when he saw their evidence. "Ethan, this is sophisticated," Alan had said, spreading documents across his conference table. "This is not a normal divorce. This is a corporate takedown. She has transaction records, recorded conversations, witness statements from people I have never heard of. They have painted you as a monster." My sister Linda had tried to warn me years earlier. "There is something off about Vanessa," she had said at a family barbecue. "She asks too many questions about the business, about Dad's garage, about family properties. It is like she is taking inventory." I had laughed it off. "She is my wife, Linda. She should know about our assets." "No, Ethan," Linda had insisted. "She asked me if Dad had any storage units, safe deposit boxes, anything he might have left behind." Why would she care about Dad's old junk? Now I understood why. Vanessa had been looking for hidden assets from the very beginning. She had married me, but she had been investigating my entire family, searching for every possible source of wealth. The only thing she had missed was my father's secret, because Sam Walker had spent a lifetime learning how to hide in plain sight. My father had run Walker's Auto Repair for 35 years, a modest shop that specialized in domestic vehicles. He had come home every night with grease under his fingernails, eaten dinner in his work clothes, and fallen asleep watching the Discovery Channel. He had driven the same truck for 15 years, lived in the same small house, and worn clothes from Walmart. When he died of a heart attack at 71, his funeral was attended by mechanics customers whose cars he had fixed, and a surprising number of veterans who did not say much beyond, "Sam was a good man." I thought I knew everything about him, but I was wrong. The divorce proceedings began on a cold February morning in downtown Phoenix. Vanessa walked into the courthouse wearing the pearl necklace I had given her for our 10th anniversary and a black Chanel suit that screamed sophisticated victim. She had hired a makeup artist to make her look subtly exhausted, like a woman who had been suffering in silence for years. Every detail was calculated, from the tissue she clutched in her manicured hand to the way she flinched when I entered the room. "Mr. Walker," Judge Porter said, reviewing the mountain of documents before her. "According to these records, you have leveraged family assets without your wife's knowledge, hidden business losses from dealership investments, and made threats about leaving your family destitute if she ever left you." "Those recordings are edited, Your Honor," I protested, standing up despite Alan grabbing my arm. "If you listen to the full conversations, you will hear they have been cut and spliced together." Judge Porter's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Walker, you will speak only when addressed. Mr. Pierce, continue presenting your evidence." Nathan Pierce stood with the confidence of a man who knew he had already won. "Your Honor, we have 18 hours of recorded conversations showing Mr. Walker's emotional abuse and financial manipulation. We have bank records showing secret accounts. We have testimony from 3 of his employees confirming his erratic behavior and dangerous business decisions. The employees were people I had fired for theft, but somehow that detail got buried in paperwork. The secret accounts were business holdings that any competent accountant would recognize as standard corporate structure. But Nathan Pierce presented each piece like a smoking gun, building a narrative that transformed me from successful businessman to financial predator. Vanessa took the stand, tears streaming down her face as she described feeling financially terrorized by my business decisions. He would come home from the dealerships talking about expansion plans that would risk everything we had built. She sobbed. When I questioned him, he told me I did not understand business. He said if I ever left him, he would make sure I got nothing because everything was in his name or his father's name. That conversation had happened, but she had left out the context. I had been explaining how my father had advised structuring assets for tax purposes. Her tears, I now realized, were as manufactured as the Botox in her forehead. The verdict came down after 4 days of testimony. Vanessa got the estate in Lake Tahoe valued at $9.1 million. She got the vacation cabin in Park City worth $3.4 million. She got 62% of the business assets liquidated at $16.2 million. She even got our children's college funds, which she claimed she needed to provide stability during this traumatic transition. In total, $29.8 million of what I had spent 21 years building. I was left with my truck, my personal belongings, and 30 days to vacate the home where I had raised my children. The judge ordered me to pay $52,000 monthly in combined alimony and child support, which was impossible since Vanessa had taken the income-generating assets. But the cruelest blow came with custody. Vanessa got primary custody with supervised visitation for me based on her claims of emotional instability. The supervisor would cost $160 per hour, money I did not have. Dad, why is Mom saying you hid money from us? Grace asked during my first supervised visit at a sterile office building. The supervisor, a woman named Janet, took notes on everything I said. Your mom is hurt right now, I replied carefully, knowing every word would be reported. Sometimes when people are hurt, they see things differently than they really are. She says you are manipulating us when you say things like that. Caleb added, his 16-year-old face torn between loyalty to his mother and love for his father. She played us recordings where you sound really mean. I wanted to explain about edited audio, about manipulation, about the truth, but Janet's pen was moving across her notepad and I knew anything I said would be twisted. So I simply said, I love you both no matter what. After the divorce was finalized, Vanessa sent me a text from my former home. The house looks better without your things in it. I am turning your office into a yoga studio. Do not bother fighting for more visitation. My lawyer has enough evidence to terminate your parental rights entirely if you push. You should have listened when I told you not to cross me. My sister Linda offered me her guest room, but pride would not let me accept. Ethan, this is not right, she said, standing in her driveway as I loaded my few remaining belongings into my truck. Dad would be rolling in his grave if he saw what she did to you. He never trusted her, you know. He told me once that she reminded him of someone he had known in the service, someone who had sold out their entire unit for money. I laughed bitterly. Dad is dead, Linda. His opinion does not matter anymore. How wrong I was. Sam Walker's opinion was about to matter more than I could have ever imagined. 3 days felt like 3 years. After Harold Whitaker bought my father's storage unit at auction, I had returned to the only work I could find, fixing cars at a small garage on Van Buren St. The owner, Frank Miller, paid me $16 an hour under the table. No questions asked about why a man in his 40s with soft hands was suddenly desperate for mechanic work. You are good with engines, Frank said that morning, watching me diagnose a timing belt issue on a Toyota Corolla. Natural talent like you have been doing this your whole life. My father taught me, I replied, tightening a bolt. He always said understanding machines was about listening, not just looking. Frank nodded. Sam Walker was the best diagnostic mechanic in Phoenix. Could tell what was wrong with the car just by the sound it made pulling into the lot. Shame about his passing. My phone rang at exactly 2:47 p.m. Harold Whitaker's voice was different from 3 days ago, urgent and shaken. Ethan, you need to come here right now. Drop whatever you are doing. I am at work, Harold. I cannot just leave. Your dad was not who you thought he was. This cannot wait. I am at the storage facility unit 349. Get here now. I looked at Frank, who must have seen something in my face. Go, he said. Family emergency trumps everything. The drive to Lakeside Storage took 20 minutes. My truck sputtered twice, running on fumes because I had been stretching $20 of gas for 3 days. Harold was standing outside Unit 349, his weathered face, pale hands slightly trembling. He was holding a manila folder like it might explode. Ethan, I served 2 tours in Vietnam. He began, his voice low. I know military documents when I see them. I know classified materials. Your father was not just a mechanic. He was naval intelligence, then CIA. This storage unit is a dead drop, a safe house in plain sight. That is impossible, I said. My father fixed cars. He went to PTA meetings. He coached my little league team. Harold led me inside. The front area looked exactly as I'd expected. Boxes of old tax returns, tools from the garage, a set of golf clubs he had never used. But Harold had found something else. I was moving boxes to organize things for donation, he explained, when I noticed the back wall sounded hollow. He pushed on what looked like a solid panel, and it swung inward on hidden hinges. Behind it was a second chamber, smaller but meticulously organized. Military footlockers lined one wall. A gun safe stood in the corner. Filing cabinets with combination locks filled another wall, and covering the back wall was a map of the world with pins in dozens of cities, red string connecting them like a spider web. The safe was already open, Harold said, like he wanted someone to find it eventually. Look at this. He handed me a photograph of my father in full Navy SEAL gear, standing with a team of 5 men in what was clearly a jungle setting. The image was dated 1972, but what shocked me was how young and dangerous he looked. This was not the patient gentleman who taught me to ride a bike. This was a warrior. Read this, Harold said, handing me a folder marked for Ethan. Open only after Vanessa shows her true colors. My hands shook as I read my father's handwriting. Son, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and Vanessa has done exactly what I predicted. I have watched her for years, studied her patterns, recognized her type. She is not just a gold digger. She is a professional con artist. Her real name is not even Vanessa Walker. Before you, she was Lena Morgan in Salem, married to a real estate developer named Eric Lawson, who lost everything in their divorce. Before that, Patricia Chandler in Tacoma married to a tech entrepreneur named Mark Chandler, who ended up bankrupt. She changes her name, her story, but never her method. The folder contained surveillance photos of Vanessa meeting with Nathan Pierce 5 years ago, long before she had ever mentioned divorce. There were bank records showing offshore accounts in the Caymans. There were transcripts of conversations between Vanessa and someone named Sharon discussing the timeline for the Walker operation. Your father hired private investigators, Harold explained. He tracked her history, documented everything, but he knew if he told you while he was alive, you would not believe him. Love makes men blind, so he set this up as insurance. I found another document, this one from Whitman & Comey Private Wealth. Mr. Walker, it read, per your father's instructions, the family trust has been held in reserve pending verification of specific circumstances. Upon presentation of this letter and accompanying documentation, full control of trust assets will transfer to you immediately. Current portfolio value, $50,000, $1,000. $50 million, I said the number out loud, not believing it. Harold pointed to a ledger. Your father bought properties in Phoenix, Tempe, and Mesa over 30 years, always in trust, names never traceable to him personally. He lived like a mechanic while building a real estate empire. Every building is paid off, generating rental income. He was planning for this exact scenario. Harold helped me load 25 boxes of evidence into my truck. Your father saved my entire platoon in '72, he said, carrying a box of surveillance photos. 11 men went home because he spotted an ambush before it happened. I have owed him a debt for 50 years. Consider the auction money my final payment. I drove straight to Whitman & Co. in downtown Phoenix, arriving at their glass tower at 4:45 p.m. Charles Whitman himself, a dignified man in his 70s with silver hair and knowing eyes, was waiting in the marble lobby. "Ethan Walker," he said, extending his hand, "I have been expecting you for 3 years. Your father said you would come eventually after you had lost everything but found something more valuable." His corner office overlooked the entire city. He poured 2 glasses of Whiskey Malt 18 and slid a leather folder across his mahogany desk. "Your father and I served together in naval intelligence," Charles Whitman said. "When he came home, he asked me to manage his investments quietly. Every property he bought, every dollar he saved was for this moment. The documents showed property deeds for 15 commercial buildings, 7 apartment complexes, and 3 shopping centers. Current market value is $50 million, Whitman explained. Annual rental income is approximately $3.2 million after expenses. Your father also left instructions for what he called Phase 2. "Phase 2, I asked. Whitman smiled grimly. "Destroying Vanessa and Nathan Pierce. Your father did not just document their crimes, he built legal cases, multiple counts of interstate fraud conspiracy and money laundering. He has recordings of them discussing their scheme dating back 5 years. I pulled out my father's recordings and Whitman played one on his computer. Vanessa's voice filled the room. "The fool thinks I love him. 3 more years and we will have everything positioned." Pierce's voice followed. "The emotional abuse angle works every time. We have done this 4 times now. The Salem case was textbook. This one will be even bigger. Walker's worth more than all the others combined." "Your father had them under surveillance for 3 years, Whitman explained. "He hired former CIA operatives to track them. We have enough evidence to put them both in federal prison. The FBI has been waiting for my call. I hired Michael Stone, Arizona's most feared attorney, a man who has never lost a federal case. When we filed for an emergency hearing based on fraud, Judge Porter was forced to recuse herself." The new judge, Judge Robert Keaton, reviewed our evidence with growing shock. The courtroom confrontation was everything I had dreamed of during those nights sleeping in my truck. Vanessa walked in wearing designer clothes bought with my money confident until she saw Michael Stone at my table. Her face went white when FBI agents entered behind us. "Your Honor." Stone began, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "We are presenting evidence of systematic, premeditated fraud spanning multiple states and victims. The defendant, whose legal name is not even Vanessa Walker, has committed this crime in Washington, Oregon, and now Arizona." Stone projected photos on the courtroom screen. Vanessa as Patricia Chandler. Vanessa as Lena Morgan. Documents showing her pattern of marriages and divorces. Then came my father's recordings, crystal clear, undeniable. The courtroom gasped when they heard her laughing about destroying me. "This is impossible," Vanessa screamed, standing up. "Ethan's father was just a mechanic. This is fabricated." "Actually," Agent Laura Collins of the FBI said, stepping forward, "Sam Walker was Commander Walker Naval Intelligence, retired with honors after 20 years of classified service. His evidence-gathering methods are impeccable and admissible." Nathan Pierce tried to leave the courtroom but was stopped by federal marshals. "You are both under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, interstate racketeering, and money laundering," Agent Collins announced. "My children were in the gallery brought by Linda." Caleb stood up, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, we are so sorry. She made us believe you were dangerous. She played us edited recordings every day, told us you were trying to manipulate us." "She is still your mother," I said, pulling both my kids into a hug as Vanessa was handcuffed. "You could not have known." I did not know, and I was married to her for 21 years. Vanessa's final words before they led her away were directed at me. "Your father was a ghost, a liar. He destroyed everything." "No," I replied calmly. "He was a protector. He saw you coming from miles away and made sure that when you struck, you would only destroy yourself. The FBI seized all assets obtained through fraud. The lakefront mansion, the vacation cabin, the money she had taken, it all went into federal receivership. But I did not want it back. Those places were poisoned with memories of betrayal. Instead, I focused on what my father had built in secret, the empire he had hidden to protect from predators like Vanessa. 8 months later, I am standing in my father's old garage on Roosevelt Avenue, which I have kept running in his honor. The morning sun streams through the windows, illuminating the tool bench where he taught me to rebuild carburetors when I was 12. But now I know this garage was never just a garage. It was his cover story, his way of staying invisible while protecting his family from threats we never knew existed. The apartment buildings he left me generate $3.2 million annually in rental income. I do not need to work, but I choose to. These hands that once signed million-dollar deals now change oil and replace brake pads. Frank Miller offered to make me a partner, but I bought him out instead, keeping him on as manager while I work the floor. There is something healing about honest work, about fixing things that are actually broken instead of fighting shadows in boardrooms. Vanessa is serving 9 years in federal prison for interstate fraud with no possibility of parole for 6. Nathan Pierce got 13 years because this was his 5th offense across state lines. Their assets were seized under RICO statutes, and ironically, the government offered me the lakefront mansion as partial restitution. I sold it immediately for $5 million and donated half to veterans organizations in my father's name. I bought a modest 4-bedroom house in Glendale, 4 blocks from where Linda lives with her family. Caleb and Grace stay with me full-time, now their mother having lost all custody rights after the criminal conviction. The adjustment has not been easy. They spent months in therapy processing how their mother had manipulated them and used them as weapons against me. "Dad, why did not Grandpa tell you about all this while he was alive?" Grace asked last week while helping me organize his real workshop, the one hidden behind the garage where we found his military medal service records and 42 years of journals. I showed her the last entry he had written, dated just a week before his heart attack. A man who builds his own fortune never questions its worth. I gave Ethan the gift of earning his success without shortcuts, without nepotism, without knowing he had a safety net. The properties, the money, they were never the real inheritance. The real treasure was watching him become a man who could lose everything and still stand tall, still work with dignity, still choose honor over revenge. That was the Walker way. Harold Whitaker stops by the garage every Thursday for coffee and stories about my father. Yesterday he brought 3 other veterans men in their 70s who had served with Sam Walker in operations they still cannot fully discuss. "Your dad saved our lives more than once," one said, rolling up his sleeve to show a scar from a wound my father had treated in the field. "He could have done anything after the service, become a contractor making millions, worked for defense companies. Instead, he chose to be your father, to be normal, to be invisible." Why, I asked. Because he had seen what happens to families when money and power become the focus, Harold explained. He watched other operatives, kids grow up spoiled, entitled, destroyed by wealth they did not earn. He wanted you to build something real, to develop actual character. The fact that you are here working in his garage instead of living off his millions proves he succeeded. The storage unit revealed more than hidden wealth. It revealed a father's love that operated on levels I am only beginning to understand. Every customer he had fixed cars for over the years had been vetted. Every friend I had brought home had been quietly investigated. Every business deal I had made had been monitored from the shadows. He had been my guardian angel invisible, but always present. Last month, Charles Whitman called with news that shocked me again. "Your father left one more thing," he said. "A college fund for every child of a fallen service member in Arizona administered anonymously. He had been funding it for 20 years. He named you as the successor trustee." I keep the Navy SEAL photo on my desk now, right next to a picture of him in his mechanic's overalls. Two versions of the same man, the warrior and the father, the ghost and the guardian. Every morning I look at both photos and remember that the quietest men are often the strongest, and the best fathers are the ones who protect you from battles you never know you are fighting. My father saved my life from beyond the grave. But more importantly, he taught me that real wealth is not measured in millions. It is measured in the respect you earn the children you raise and the integrity you maintain when everything falls apart. The storage unit that went for $500 at auction contained $50 million in assets, but its real value was priceless. It contained proof that Sam Walker loved his son enough to live a lie for 42 years, just to ensure I would become a man worthy of the truth. If you enjoyed this story, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear that. Sometimes the greatest love comes from the most unexpected places. Drop a comment below about a time when someone protected you in ways you did not realize until later. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more incredible true stories that will leave you speechless.